President Trump shares a powerful message regarding his peace plan. On October 3, 2025, just 2 days before his self-imposed deadline, Trump received something no American president has achieved in decades: a conditional acceptance from a military opposition of a comprehensive peace plan. Within hours, Trump released a powerful video message from the Oval Office that has already garnered over 2 million views and sparked global debate. But what did Hamas really agree to? Why did Trump pressure Netanyahu to stop the bombing immediately? And what does this unprecedented diplomatic breakthrough have to do with a 2,500-year-old Bible prophecy about the end times? You will be shocked when you discover 5 discoveries about this news. Discovery 1: Trump's peace plan. To understand the magnitude of Trump's response, you need to understand what led to this moment. Because October 2025 represents the convergence of multiple crises that have brought the world to the brink of unprecedented change. We're now in the second year of the Israel-Hamas conflict that began with the October 7th attacks. Over 50,000 lives have been lost. Millions have been displaced. The Middle East stands on the edge of regional war involving Iran, Turkey, and potentially Russia. On September 29th, Trump unveiled his 20-point peace plan, the most comprehensive Middle East initiative in modern history. An immediate ceasefire and complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Total demilitarization of all militant groups. A massive reconstruction effort overseen by an international board of peace, chaired personally by Donald Trump himself. But here's what made this different from every previous peace proposal. Trump gave Hamas exactly 72 hours to respond. Not weeks of negotiations, not months of diplomatic back and forth. Accept the plan by October 5th, or face what he called all hell breaking loose, with unlimited American backing for Israel to finish the job militarily. The world held its breath. Would Hamas accept a deal that required them to surrender their weapons and governmental control? Would they reject it and trigger the massive military campaign that Netanyahu had been preparing? On October 3rd, they blinked first, sort of. Hamas issued a 6-paragraph statement that shocked diplomatic observers worldwide. They conditionally accepted key elements of Trump's plan, agreeing to release all remaining Israeli hostages, hand over governance to a Palestinian technocratic body, and begin implementing an immediate ceasefire. But they rejected crucial aspects: full demilitarization, Trump's personal role as Reconstruction Chairman, and isolation of Gaza from broader Palestinian issues. It was a yes but response that left everything hanging in the balance. This is the first time since 2020 has conditionally accepted any plan involving direct U.S. leadership. The first time they've agreed to comprehensive hostage releases. The first time they've acknowledged the possibility of surrendering governmental control. Trump had hours to respond before his own deadline expired. The world was watching. Markets were trembling. And biblical prophecy watchers were wondering if they were about to witness the fulfillment of ancient warnings about false peace in the last days. Discovery 2: Trump's full video response. What Trump said next has been called everything from diplomatic genius to prophetic fulfillment to dangerous deception. Speaking directly to camera from behind the Resolute desk, with a map of Gaza's proposed withdrawal lines visible behind him, Trump delivered what he called one of the greatest days in civilization's history. Let me take you through his exact words, because every phrase matters. Good afternoon, folks. This is a big day for the Middle East, for Israel, for the hostages' families, and really for the world. Notice how he frames this globally, not just regionally. This isn't just about Gaza or even Israel. This is about the entire world order. Based on what they said, I believe they're ready for a lasting peace. They've agreed to release all the hostages, the living ones, about 20 brave souls, and the remains of the others, around 28. That's huge. But then, Trump said something that sent shockwaves through both diplomatic and prophetic communities. Israel, you've been incredible, strong, tough, like lions. But now, it's time to stop the bombing in Gaza right now. It's too dangerous to get the hostages out while the strikes continue. This was the first time since October 7, 2023, that any American president had publicly demanded Israel halt military operations. Trump was essentially choosing hostage recovery over Israeli military objectives. He continued, "We're already talking details with the mediators. Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. Everybody was unified at the UN and beyond, wanting this war to end." And then came the phrase that has prophecy watchers around the world taking notice. This isn't just about Gaza. It's about the whole Middle East coming together. Eternal peace. No more fighting. Rebuilding stronger than ever. Eternal peace. Those exact words. When Trump speaks of eternal peace, biblical prophecy watchers hear something else entirely. They hear echoes of ancient warnings about false peace that precedes the greatest deception in human history. Discovery 3: Prophetic Parallels. Let me show you why Trump's response has students of biblical prophecy sitting up and taking notice. Because the parallels to ancient predictions are impossible to ignore, and the details are more specific than most people realize. Daniel 9:27. "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." This verse is part of Daniel's famous 70 weeks prophecy, one of the most precise and detailed predictions in all of Scripture. To understand why Trump's response matters prophetically, we need to understand what Daniel actually predicted. The Hebrew text reveals stunning details. The Hebrew word translated confirm is gabar, which doesn't mean to create something new, but to strengthen, make firm, or give force to something that already exists. Daniel is describing someone who will take existing agreements and make them stronger, more comprehensive, more binding. The word covenant, berith in Hebrew, refers to a formal binding agreement that creates lasting relationships between parties. This isn't just a ceasefire or temporary arrangement. It's a fundamental restructuring of regional relationships. With many, rabbim in Hebrew specifically refers to multiple parties, not just two. Daniel saw a multilateral agreement involving numerous nations and stakeholders, the modern fulfillment pattern. Now look at the scope of Trump's initiative: the United States providing security guarantees and reconstruction oversight, Israel agreeing to territorial concessions and military restraint, Hamas surrendering weapons and governmental control, Egypt and Qatar serving as mediators and guarantors, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Jordan providing regional legitimacy, the European Union potentially contributing reconstruction funds, the United Nations offering international recognition. That's at least 8 major parties, with dozens of smaller stakeholders. This is exactly the many that Daniel described. But here's what should make every believer take notice. Trump has positioned himself not just as a mediator between existing parties, but as the central authority over the entire process. Daniel specifies that this covenant will last 1 week, which in prophetic literature represents 7 years. While Trump hasn't explicitly stated a 7-year timeline, the scope of what he's proposing demands long-term implementation. Consider what his plan includes: complete reconstruction of Gaza's infrastructure, establishment of new governmental systems, creation of economic zones and trade relationships, regional normalization agreements with multiple Arab nations, security arrangements that prevent future conflicts. International development experts estimate that comprehensive post-conflict reconstruction requires 5 to 10 years minimum. The kind of regional transformation Trump envisions, turning the Middle East from a conflict zone into a prosperity zone, would realistically require a decade or more. The 7-year prophetic timeline isn't just possible. It's practically necessary for the scope of change Trump is proposing. The temple connection. But here's where it gets truly prophetic. Daniel's covenant specifically mentions that sacrifice and oblation will be taking place during the first half of the 7-year period, then stopped in the middle. This assumes a functioning temple with active sacrificial worship. For nearly 2,000 years, this seemed impossible because no temple existed, and the requirements for temple service couldn't be met. The Temple Institute has completed all preparations for reconstruction. The only missing element is political permission. Could Trump's comprehensive peace plan include provisions for shared access to the Temple Mount? Could the international oversight he's proposing create a framework for Jewish temple construction alongside continued Muslim worship at existing sites? Recent statements from Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman suggest that Arab nations might accept Jewish temple construction in exchange for comprehensive Palestinian statehood and regional peace. What seemed impossible just months ago may be becoming politically feasible. The withdrawal map. In Trump's video, the withdrawal map visible behind him shows detailed territorial arrangements that go far beyond typical ceasefire lines. The map includes specific zones of control, phases of implementation, and what appears to be designated areas for different types of activity. Prophecy watchers are noting that the map seems to include arrangements for the Temple Mount area, though the resolution makes it difficult to determine exact details. If this peace plan does include Temple Mount provisions, it would perfectly fulfill Daniel's prediction that the covenant would enable the resumption of sacrificial worship. What makes this moment particularly prophetic is the unprecedented global unity around Trump's initiative. In his video, he specifically mentions that everybody was unified at the UN and beyond, wanting this war to end. Historically, Middle East peace initiatives have faced significant international opposition. Arab nations have rejected plans that favor Israel. European powers have criticized arrangements that disadvantage Palestinians. Russia and China have used their UN Security Council positions to block American-led initiatives. But Trump's plan is receiving remarkably broad international support. Even traditional adversaries are finding common ground around this framework. And through his policy also, he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes, but he shall be broken without hand. By peace shall destroy many, not through war, but through peace, not through obvious evil, but through apparent success. Is this the peace that Daniel predicted would mark the beginning of the final 7 years before Christ's return? I'm not making definitive prophetic identifications. Whether this is the prophetic covenant or the most detailed rehearsal for it in human history, every believer should be watching, praying, and preparing for whatever God is doing in our generation. Discovery 4. But there's another biblical warning that Trump's response brings into sharp focus. And this one should deeply concern anyone who understands New Testament prophecy about the end times. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Listen to Trump's exact words again. Eternal peace, no more fighting. One of the greatest days in civilization's history. Peace and safety. The exact phrase Paul warned believers to watch for. But to understand the full prophetic significance of this moment, we need to examine the context Paul was writing in and the specific pattern he was describing. The context of Paul's warning. Paul wrote these words to the church in Thessalonica around 51 AD, addressing their questions about the timing of Christ's return and the day of the Lord. Look at the verses immediately preceding this warning. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-2. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. Paul is specifically addressing end times deception. He's warning about a time when the world will declare peace and safety just before experiencing unprecedented destruction. This isn't a general warning about false optimism. It's a specific prophecy about end times events. The Greek word Paul uses for destruction is olethros, meaning ruin, death, or complete annihilation. This isn't minor setbacks or temporary difficulties. This is catastrophic judgment that comes suddenly and inescapably. The war that Trump claimed was ending continued with deadly intensity. Paul's comparison to childbirth is particularly significant. As travail upon a woman with child, labor pains that come suddenly, intensely, and cannot be stopped once they begin. Any woman who has given birth knows that labor pains don't announce themselves politely. They come without warning, with increasing intensity, and create a process that must run to completion regardless of the mother's comfort or preference. Paul is saying that when the world declares peace and safety, the judgment that follows will be equally sudden, intense, and unstoppable. There will be no opportunity to reverse course, no diplomatic solution, no human intervention that can prevent what comes next. Now consider the broader context in which Trump's peace declaration is occurring. The United States government remains shut down for the fourth day, with 800,000 federal workers furloughed and $26 billion in federal funding frozen. American political dysfunction has reached levels not seen since the Civil War. Trump is promising comprehensive international reconstruction, while America's own infrastructure crumbles under political warfare. He's guaranteeing security abroad, while domestic division threatens civil stability at home. The economic implications are staggering. Markets dropped 1.5% on the first day of the shutdown alone. Defense contractors are halting work on military projects, potentially affecting America's ability to fulfill Trump's promises of full backing for Israel. Paul's warning about false peace fits into a larger biblical pattern that believers need to understand. Matthew 24:6-8. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Jesus described a sequence: wars and rumors of wars, followed by nation rising against nation, followed by various catastrophes, all leading to the beginning of sorrows. We're seeing exactly this pattern. The Gaza war representing wars and rumors of wars. But there's a spiritual dimension to this deception that most people miss entirely. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. The deception Paul warned about isn't just political or economic, it's spiritual. The same demonic forces that have opposed God's purposes throughout history are working to deceive humanity. Think about Satan's ultimate strategy. He doesn't defeat God's people through obvious evil that everyone can recognize. International cooperation on humanitarian assistance seems helpful. Centralized resource distribution seems necessary during crisis. But what if these apparently good developments are actually preparing the infrastructure for the greatest deception in human history? Paul's warning in 1 Thessalonians 5:3 is followed immediately by this crucial statement in verse 4. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Believers who are watching and praying, who are grounded in Scripture, who are spiritually alert, they should not be caught off guard by these developments. They should recognize the signs, understand the pattern, and prepare accordingly. The question every Christian must ask is, are we being deceived by the same false peace that will fool the rest of the world? Are we celebrating diplomatic breakthroughs without recognizing their prophetic implications? Are we so desperate for good news that we ignore biblical warnings about end times deception? The ultimate test. Could this be the very false peace that Scripture warns will precede the greatest tribulation in human history? Could Trump's diplomatic triumph actually be setting the stage for unprecedented spiritual deception? Whether this specific moment represents the fulfillment of 1 Thessalonians 5:3 or just a remarkable preview of it, every believer should be watching, praying, and preparing for whatever comes next. Because Paul's warning ends with these sobering words, "And they shall not escape." When the real false peace comes, when the ultimate deception unfolds, when sudden destruction arrives, there will be no escape for those who trusted in human solutions instead of divine protection. Discovery 5: The Global Stage. But Trump's response doesn't exist in isolation. It's happening at the convergence of multiple global developments. But perhaps most ominously, this same month witnessed the United Kingdom's launch of its mandatory digital ID system, a development that biblical prophecy watchers see as direct infrastructure for the mark of the beast described in Revelation 13. The UK system requires digital identity verification for employment by 2029. It controls access to banking, healthcare, and essential services through smartphone apps. It creates centralized oversight of individual economic participation. Revelation 13:16-17. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. The UN Secretary General called it a window of opportunity. European leaders are expressing cautious optimism. Arab nations are indicating willingness to participate. Even traditional adversaries are finding common ground. This kind of global unity around a single leader's vision is exactly what biblical prophecy suggests will characterize end times deception. Consider the logical progression that Trump's peace framework creates. Phase 1. Comprehensive peace agreement creates international dependency on American aid and oversight. Phase 2. Digital distribution systems track and control resource allocation to prevent fraud and ensure compliance. Phase 3. Central authority, Trump's board, determines who receives assistance based on adherence to peace terms. Phase 4. Economic participation becomes tied to compliance with international oversight mechanisms. Phase 5. The same systems used for reconstruction aid become the infrastructure for controlling global commerce. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is the natural evolution of the digital control systems being established through apparently beneficial humanitarian programs. American government collapsing while international leadership is asserted. Digital control systems launching while economic aid is centralized. Never before have so many biblically predicted elements aligned simultaneously. Never before has the infrastructure for comprehensive control been so advanced while appearing so beneficial. The Revelation 13 connection. Revelation 13, 3-4. And I saw one of his heads, as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? The world doesn't follow the beast because he's obviously evil. They follow him because he's amazingly successful. Are we watching the deal of the century unfold? Or are we witnessing the deal that leads to the final deception prophesied in Scripture? The infrastructure for total control is being built through apparently beneficial programs. Global unity is emerging around comprehensive solutions. Economic systems are being digitized under humanitarian pretenses. Political frameworks are being established for previously impossible arrangements. Whether this represents the beginning of Revelation 13's beast system, or just the most detailed rehearsal for it in human history, every believer should be watching, praying, and preparing for whatever comes next. Luke 21:36. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Jesus didn't command us to set dates or make definitive prophetic identifications. He commanded us to watch and pray, to be spiritually ready, to maintain eternal perspective on temporal events. Trump's response to Hamas may represent the breakthrough the world has been waiting for. It may bring the hostages home and end the suffering in Gaza. It may establish lasting peace in the Middle East. But it may also represent something far more significant, the beginning of the end times sequence that leads to the return of Christ. Whether this is the Daniel 9:27 covenant, or just a remarkable rehearsal for it, whether this is the 1 Thessalonians 5:3 false peace, or just an uncanny parallel, every believer faces the same responsibility: to be ready for whatever God is doing in our generation. Ancient prophecies are finding modern parallels. Global events are aligning with biblical predictions in ways that previous generations could never have imagined. Stay informed, but stay grounded in Scripture. Watch current events, but watch through the lens of biblical prophecy. Prepare practically, but prepare spiritually above all. Because whether this peace plan succeeds or fails, whether it brings lasting stability or temporary deception, the King is coming. The kingdom is being established, and every believer has a role to play in the greatest story ever told. Do you believe this is real peace, or the beginning of the deception that Scripture warns will fool even the elect, if possible?
Many seem to be confused. because they do not understand the book of Revelation. However, what if there was an animation showing the entire book? Well, we created that. And to watch that, click here.